welcome back to EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and let's talk about Rule Zero. Of course, a pretty popular concept in the format of Commander. Honestly, I'm not sure how many other formats are actually using it. Certainly, it's important in the Commander format for a number of reasons, and it gets thrown around a lot. You know, it's funny, when I first started making videos about cards that should be banned or cards that aren't really casual, this kind of stuff, a lot of people would just comment, hey, just Rule Zero, no problem. Which, yes, that is the case, and Rule Zero can be used for that. But a lot of times it isn't helpful. Like I talked about in my hot takes video recently, if you don't have a very specific play group that you play with regularly, even Rule Zero can't solve a lot of these issues. So that's not always the solution either. Now, of course, what is Rule Zero, right? A lot of people might be watching this video, if you're newer to the Commander format, wondering what the heck I'm talking about. And that's really, in my opinion, the funny thing about Rule Zero is you can't really define it. I mean, I guess you could try, but for me, I'm thinking, what's the actual definition of Rule Zero? I guess what it would mean is anything that is outside of the official rules of the Commander format that is agreed upon with the group that you're currently playing with, right? So whatever the group is, you got 3 people, 5 people, 20 people. I don't know if anyone's ever played a 20-player Commander game, but whatever the group you're currently playing with, right? So maybe I'm going to play with a different group in a couple hours. Maybe I just play with another group where we used different Rule Zero. But this exact game that I'm playing right now, Rule Zero is what is everyone agreeing upon that is either outside of the rules of Commander or inside of the rules of Commander, but we just want to leave it out of this particular game, right? So for example, a Rule Zero thing could be, I don't want to see any Turgid decks, right? Maybe everyone in your play group really doesn't like Turgid. So you got to leave that out there. No fast mana, right? We don't want any mana crypts. We don't need mana vaults. Let's leave that out of the game. I think that's actually a pretty common one. No mass land destruction. In fact, the mass land destruction one is such a common Rule Zero that it's almost an unstated rule for most casual Commander players. No hard stacks, right? Stuff like that. Really funny Rule Zero that someone told me in the comments once that their play group does. No blue. They do not play the color blue. That's hilarious, right? I guess everyone just really hates counterspells. Maybe they hate Cyclonic Rift. No one in their play group plays the color blue. That's kind of funny. I don't love that. I mean, obviously, leaving out an entire color leaves out a whole lot of things in the game of Magic. But for me, Rule Zero typically means things that you would not allow that would normally be allowed into a Commander game, or things that normally wouldn't be allowed that you would allow. And one of the reasons I'm making this video is because I had a guy really hard disagreeing with me on this one, because I had recently talked about the Heroes of the Realm commanders, right? The ones that are made specifically for those Wizards of the Coast employees. And of course, I had a lot of people commenting on the video, these aren't real Magic cards, you can't really play them, etc., etc. And I said, well, you just Rule Zero it, of course, right? If you have that card, I mean, I'm sure the people who actually had those cards printed specifically for them would actually like to use them at some point, right? I mean, they might just be hanging them on a wall or putting them in their binder, but maybe they actually want to use them. I mean, I sure would if that was me that got that card made for me. And I imagine they could Rule Zero that, where they say to their play group or just some other play group, hey, here's this card, and they explain where it came from. I mean, certainly if that was me, I would be okay with probably most of the commanders from that video, as I stated. Of course, there's going to be other people in the game. They have to agree as well. That's how Rule Zero works. It's essentially a democracy, right? I had a guy that was really disagreeing with me on that point, though. He said Rule Zero is for making rules more strict, usually to regulate power level, i.e. restricting fast mana. Under no circumstances would an illegal card or deck become legal. Really? I mean, where are you getting that from? I don't know. I mean, that's your definition of Rule Zero. It's not my definition. Absolutely, Rule Zero, in my opinion, is used to allow things that normally wouldn't be allowed. I've done this all the time on my channel already, where I talked about non-legendary creatures that should be commanders. I made a few of those videos, and I'm going to make another one right away, actually. Really interesting build-around creatures that I think feel like legendary creatures to me, and also I think are fair, right? Again, the Rule Zero thing is all about everyone agreeing, and I'm pretty sure if I showed up with my Liege of the Hollows deck or my Limduel's Paladin deck, I don't think anyone's going to have an issue with that. I mean, they can. They are well within their right to say, say, that's not a legal commander, you can't use it, that's fine. I'll put that deck away and grab another one. But if all the, let's say 3 people are okay with it, then of course I can. Who is this guy from who knows where who commented on my video to say that I'm not allowed to do that? The 3 guys that I'm playing with are saying it's okay. That's all that matters to me. That's literally what rule 0 is. As long as the people, the individuals I'm playing with are okay with it, then it's okay. And I would say when we get to the point where it's playing cards that aren't normally in the legal format, maybe you could include cards that are banned in the format in here as well. For example, if someone said, hey, I have a Primeval Titan in my deck, do you guys mind? I would be like, I don't think that card should be banned in the format anyway. I would have no problem with it. However, once we get to stuff like banned cards and not legal commanders, all that kind of stuff, I would say probably we need a unanimous decision here, right? Everyone has to agree. I think if one person was like, no, I don't like it, then I would definitely, and I would expect that other person to put that stuff aside and do something else. I have played against custom commanders as well, right? So now we're not even talking about magic cards. Again, similar to the Heroes of the Realm stuff, I played against one patron who had a custom energy commander. It was a 5-color energy commander. And right before the game, again, this is how Rule 0 works. Right when we're about to play, he says, hey, I got this commander. Here it is. I take a look at it. I'm like, yeah, I'm good with that. I'm a pretty good judge of whether or not a commander could be overpowered or not. The other 2 people agreed as well. So he went ahead and played that imaginary card that he completely made up, played that deck, and no one had a problem with it. And by the way, he was the first one who lost out of that game. So in my opinion, this is for discussion purposes, so you guys can disagree in the comments if you want, but from my point of view, Rule 0 covers literally everything. Now, can you get to a point where you're actually playing possibly not even Commander anymore, right? If you start playing with like 200 card decks, or you're like taking cards from outside of the game, which is normally what you don't do in Commander, right? Are we now just playing a different format? I guess. Really, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter though, again, because even if you're not playing Commander, you still have 4 people that are agreeing on how the game is going to be played, right? And I will just say, if you are a person who's doing that regularly, you're going to run into some problems once you start playing with other people outside of your group, obviously. This will bring me into something else that I actually want to talk about, which is pretty interesting for discussion purposes, of course, something that happened on my Discord recently and plays into the whole Rule 0 thing. So a big Rule 0 thing for a lot of play groups is concede at sorcery speed. And if you've ever played with people online, just random strangers you don't actually know, like I have a whole lot, oh boy, it can get tough. It can get really, really tough. I mean, Rule 0 there, good luck, right? And people will just, again, pull out an Armageddon in the middle of a game. You're not expecting it. It's a real crapshoot. Anything is possible when you're playing with random people online, and conceding at instant speed, right? Scooping whenever they feel like it, whenever things aren't going their way, you know, someone just kills their commander and they're like, I'm out of here, right? That kind of thing happens all the time. Now, in person, in paper Magic, that doesn't happen nearly as much. In fact, I've never had it happen playing in paper, but I'm sure it does happen. Typically, the Rule 0 that a lot of play groups use is concede at sorcery speed. The big reason is because of combat, because I attack you with all my creatures, you're certainly going to die from that lethal damage, and it's possible I have some combat triggers, right? So Coastal Piracy, whenever I deal damage with my creature, I can draw cards. Maybe I got a Face Breaker and I want to make treasure tokens, right? That kind of deal damage triggers. And if someone concedes just to sort of say, haha, you were going to kill me, so now I'm going to screw you, generally is the thinking. Maybe there's another reason you're doing it, but I imagine if someone concedes like that before damage is done, that's probably the reason they're doing it. Then you won't get all of that, right? Again, that kind of stuff happens a lot online. In person, less so, because of course, when you actually have to face the person, it's a lot more difficult to do stuff like that. Now, that being said, a discussion broke out on my Discord about something that actually happened in a game on my Discord on Spell Table, where there was a little bit, apparently, king-making going on, right? Which is something, again, that is a little bit of a controversial topic in the Commander format, which I'm not going to get entirely into, but basically, you have no chance of winning, and you're going to make it so that another person has a better chance of winning, or the guy who's doing the best, you're just going to screw him over as much as you can before you're out of the game, you know, that kind of stuff. King-making, you're choosing one person to have an advantage over everyone else based on something that you're doing. I don't love it a whole lot. Most people don't. I'll just say probably my least favorite thing in all of Commander, okay? This is something I've come across quite a bit. A huge pet peeve of mine is the guy who's playing for second place. That drives me crazy. The arch enemy aspect of the Commander format, where one guy's doing really, really good. He has all the stuff out. He's got his Soul Ring, Mana Crypt, Rhystic Study, Smothering Tithe. He's playing a really powerful commander. In my opinion, it is the duty of the other 3 players to hammer that guy and bring him back down wherever everyone else is. Having someone else in the game that's acting like their sidekick and is just like, there's no chance I'm beating this guy because look at all the stuff he's got. He's playing a powerful commander. So instead, I'm going to play for second because there's no way I'm actually going to win. That attitude absolutely drives me crazy. Now, I'm going off on a bit of a tangent here, all right? I'm talking about rule 0. And again, the sorcery speed thing is a rule 0 thing, right? That's something that you will decide amongst your playgroup. The king making thing also can be a bit of a rule 0 thing. However, that one's a little more difficult to actually regulate. And I will give you an example from this game that was played on my spell table. And there was a big discussion about it on my Discord because a lot of differing views here, right? Here's generally the scenario. I didn't actually see the game, but here's generally what happened. One guy swung out with his creatures and he's gonna kill one of his opponents, okay? That opponent has got some removal in his hand, right? Now, he doesn't have enough removal to save his life, but on his way out the door, he can pick off some of that guy's creatures, right? Maybe I'll swords your commander, kill one of your other best creatures. I'm gonna die anyway, but since I'm on my way out, I'll hit a couple of your creatures while I'm doing it. Now, is that king making? I don't know. It depends what's going on in the game, right? For me, I'm thinking the guy who is attacking with all the creatures is probably at a large advantage. So hitting a few of his creatures, I don't think is king making. I think it's the opposite. Again, it's more the arch enemy scenario where one guy is doing way better and we're bringing him down to size. Certainly, it can greatly turn the tables in a game and affect the outcome. And as I just talked about in my WinCons video a couple weeks ago, your WinCon is my WinCon, right? The things that other players do in the game is greatly going to affect whether or not I can win a game. I'm sure there's a lot of people that have played Commander games where they weren't doing so good, but because you had two guys who were doing really good and were hammering on each other the whole game and left you alone, I mean, this is essentially one of my strategies for playing the Commander format. It gives you way more of an advantage to close things out later in a game, right? One guy's using that Blood Artist or that Psychosis Crawler to hammer away at all of his opponent's life totals might make it easier for me to close out the game later. So all these interactions in a Commander game will greatly affect the outcome. And the fact that you're eliminating one opponent is going to greatly affect the outcome. And that individual knocking off a few of your creatures on their way out the door, especially if it's your commander or something, could also greatly affect the outcome and you might not be able to recover. Now, is this a rule 0 thing? I don't know. I guess you could rule 0 this so that it's okay. Well, I mean, it is okay. There's nothing saying you can't do that. You can do whatever the heck you want as long as you're still in the game and it's inside the rules. Nothing saying you can't swords your opponent's commander right before you're about to take lethal damage. This is a situation, though, where I think you could rule 0 so that people don't do that. I don't know if it's necessarily possible. I mean, it certainly can be frowned upon in a lot of play groups. I'm throwing it out for you guys. Honestly, I was reading the discussion on my Discord about this situation and I was like, you know what? I don't know where I fall on this issue. Thinking about what the game would look like, one guy's got a whole bunch of creatures. Maybe he Craterhoof attacks someone with his Avenger of Zendikar and moles over one guy because he only has enough to kill one guy. That guy probably is at a really big advantage. So knocking out his Avenger of Zendikar before I die gives the other people a better chance of catching up. But now I am affecting the outcome of the game after I'm already more or less out of the game. It's a toughie. Like, what do you do there? I don't know. I will end the video at that. I will leave it to you guys to debate in the comments below because I honestly don't even know. What would you do in this situation? Is it okay to do that? You just killed me with all your creatures. Is it not okay for me to use the removal I happen to have in my hand to get rid of some of the things that are killing me? I don't know. I'm dying anyway, so really it's sort of spiteful, I guess. How do you guys see it? You guys let me know in the comments below about that particular situation, but also Rule 0 in general and what you think Rule 0 actually means to you. It certainly is important for the Commander format. That is it for today, though, and thanks for tuning in.